Shiki might look like your run-of-the-mill lifeless high schooler, but everything changes the day his only family is unplugged right in front of him. In that moment of despair, a strange power awakens inside him, twisting him into an uncontrollable demon. Turns out he's not the only one. Others share this same cursed gift. With their help, Shiki joins a school for demons, hoping to master his powers and one day take revenge. The tale opens with a man named Samadari, standing in rain so dark it looks like blood. In desperation, he begs his senpai to finish off a child too, warning that sparing him will only bring regret. But his senpai refuses, insisting there's no mistake in letting an innocent live, and calmly walks away. That child, however, isn't ordinary. He belongs to an ancient tribe of demons feared for ages. These demons once tormented mankind, making millions tremble in helplessness. But one man stood against them, Momotaro, a legendary swordsman who cut down hundreds of Oni with his blade, sparking an endless war between himself and the entire tribe. That very war set off the chain of events leading here. 15 years later, we cut to the second floor of a liquor store owned by the Ichinose family. Upstairs is the bedroom of high schooler Shiki Ichinose, a kid who, for some reason, has a gun collection big enough to rival a GTA cheat code. On the phone with a friend, Shiki casually brags about just getting expelled for fighting. His buddy, feeling guilty, blames himself since Shiki jumped in to protect him. But Shiki brushes it off, saying it's nobody's fault, then hangs up like it's no big deal. Seconds later, his dad, Chihi, storms in, livid after hearing the news, and smacks Shiki across the head. Shiki, unfazed, tells him not to stress over something so small. But to Chihi, this is anything but small. He tries to discipline the boy, but it's not easy when Shiki has reflexes sharp enough to dodge every swing like some kind of monkey king. Eventually, Chihi cools down and demands to know why his son's room looks like an underground armory. Shiki snaps back, telling him to shut it, and quickly flips the topic, asking if it's true their liquor store is circling the drain since customers have been vanishing one by one. Shioshi's silence is all the confirmation Shiki needs. Trying to save face, the father scoffs and calls his son an expelled punk who's no better off. This time, the jab lands. Shiki's smirk fades as he fires back, saying that no matter what, he'll prove himself one day and never end up a complete failure like his old man. And he doesn't stop there. Twisting the knife, he adds that the only comfort he has is knowing they're not even related by blood. The words cut deep. Shioshi says nothing and quietly leaves the room, heading back down to the store. A moment later, the phone rings, an order for beer delivery. He gets ready to head out, but before stepping outside, his eyes fall on an old childhood photo of Shiki. For a split second, Shioshi's expression softens, hinting that no matter what was said, he still cares for his son. Meanwhile, upstairs, Shiki is still fuming. He mutters under his breath that life would have been way better if some rich guy had adopted him instead of being stuck with a washed-up old man. To blow off steam, he snatches up one of his guns and aims at the target pinned to his wall. His finger tightens on the trigger, but suddenly, a thunderous explosion rattles the entire building. Shiki rushes to the window to see what's going on, but before he can make sense of it, a shadowy force bursts into the room, wraps around his legs, and yanks him straight out the window, dragging him down into the street below. And wonders, what the hell is happening? A scary old man dressed in white appears there, ready to attack him. However, the very next moment, Tsuyoshi returns there and he rams his car into the attacker before telling Shiki to get into the car. He drives away as fast as he can, saying that their only option is to leave the country now. However, Shiki has still not processed what just happened. He asks his dad how could he just kill someone with his car, but Tsuyoshi tells him that the man is not dead yet and they need to get as far away from him as they can. He is really distressed and tells Shiki to listen to him carefully, as they don't have much time. Tsuyoshi tells Shiki that he is a descendant of the Oni, and the guy who just attacked him is the descendant of Momotaro. Shiki tells him to stop joking because it is not the time for that, but Tsuyoshi tells him that he is serious. Just then, a blade made of black mist penetrates the car's roof, and Tsuyoshi barely dodges it. He realizes that the attacker has caught up to them, and then suddenly the windows of their car are covered by black mist, completely blinding them. Tsuyoshi stops the car near an abandoned warehouse and quickly gets out of it, telling Shiki that they need to hide immediately. Just then, the car explodes, and when Tsuyoshi turns back, he finds that Shiki is missing. Luckily, he sees a trail of black mist entering the warehouse and realizes that his son has been taken. There, inside the warehouse, Shiki finds himself trapped in a giant web made out of the black mist with a scary guy named Samadare standing in front of him. Samadare tells Shiki that the only blood in his veins makes him nothing but a pest, and exterminating such pests is the job of the Maturo agency. Shiki is still in shock that Samadare survived being crushed by a car. But just then, Suasher comes there telling him that the fairy tale of Mamo is a real story. He says that for thousands of years, Mamo and Oni have been at war with each other through their descendants who share their blood. Eventually, the Momotaro descendants joined hands and formed the Momotaro agency, gaining advantage in the battle and forcing the Oni to hide among humans to survive. Shiki still can't understand what is happening, but Tsuyoshi tells him to let Daddy handle it. Samadare suddenly creates two swords out of black mist, and in response, Tsuyoshi also unleashes the same ability to fight him. The two men dash towards each other, clashing their blades and releasing a powerful shockwave. So Yoshi somehow pushes Samadare back, but he calls him weaker than he used to be back. Then, Samadare explains that the black mist is the unique ability only the descendants of Momotaro can use, and Yoshi was once his senior in the Maturo agency. Shiki is aghast on learning that his dad is a descendant of Mamo, but Tsuyoshi says that he has forgotten about that entirely. Samadare asks him if he has also forgotten how dangerous Oni are. He declares that for the crimes of sheltering an Oni, Tsuyoshi will also be eliminated. Tsuyoshi responds by attacking him first, but he and Samadare are equally matched in strength. Shiki can only watch their crazy fight in bewilderment, while Samadare asks Suasher why is he protecting a monster who only lives for destruction. Tsuyoshi tells him to shut up and tries dealing serious damage to him, but Samadare is much faster than he expected. He easily dodges the attack and then hits Tsuyoshi with a super fast combo, severely injuring him and knocking him out. Shiki is devastated on seeing his dad bleed out, and he curses Samadare, saying that he will kill him. Samadare, however, tells him that he is going to go to the afterlife with his dad soon. Just then, Tsuyoshi grabs his feet and Samadare asks him why is he going this far to protect an Oni, and he replies that he needs no reason to protect his son. He says that Shiki has not harmed anyone yet, is wrong to kill him just because he has only blood. Samadare just creates a black mist sword to finish him off, and the rage boiling inside Shiki finally hits its limit. As his eyes turn red, he swears that he will kill the bastard who is trying to hurt his dad, and his demonic powers awaken. He starts bleeding from every pore of his face, and his demonic horns sprout out of his head. Shiki yells that he will kill Samadare, and when the man turns around to see him, he finds that Shiki is no longer restrained by the web. The very next moment, a bunch of guns made out of blood pop up next to his face. But thanks to his quick reflexes, he manages to block all the shots. However, Shiki has already moved on from that location, and while Samadare wonders where he is hiding, he notices blood dripping from the rooftop where Shiki is hanging upside down like a deranged Batman. Seeing his blood-covered form, Samadare realizes that Shiki has awakened, and now he can fight by manipulating his blood. But that is not even the scariest thing about fighting an Oni. Suddenly, Shiki lunges towards him, pushing him back with his powerful stripes. Samadare quickly flips the table on him, slashing his arm off, but Shiki jumps back and instantly regrows his arm. He then screams madly, and Samadare begins to sweat because he realizes that this fight is not going to be easy. Shiki manifests his power in the form of numerous guns made out of blood, and Samadare is forced to use all his strength and speed to block the bullets. Just then, Shiki fires a freaking missile at him, and thanks to his instincts, Samadare dodges it by a very small margin, and the rocket explodes. Behind him, the old man is forced to run away from Shiki's ruthless assault, but then he throws his sword at him, hoping to take him down quickly. However, that is not nearly enough, as Shiki quickly reaches him and kicks him away. Samadare is too tired and injured to move fast enough, and Shiki steps on his face before unloading a full military battalion worth of ammo on his ass. However, Samadare somehow manages to get away with his life even though he is terribly injured. He curses Shiki, but then suddenly Shiki collapses and the guns made of blood shatter. His only transformation is undone, and as he stares at his bloody hands, Shiki loses his mind, wondering what the hell just happened here. Samadare recalls this as a typical reaction of people who awaken their Oni powers for the first time. With his remaining power, he summons a black mist sword again, deciding to finish his job right now. However, just as he is about to stab Shiki, Tsuyoshi jumps in between them, sacrificing himself to save his son. Samadare asks him how he could risk his life to save the boy even after seeing the monster he became. So Yoshi just thinks of how Shiki was a cute little boy and tells his old friend that it was not a bad thing to be a happy father even if it was for a short period. Just then some civilians gather at the site after hearing the explosion and call the fire department, and Samadare decides to retreat for now. He turns into black mist and vanishes, leaving the injured Tsuyoshi and the confused Shiki alone. Shiki panics and tells his dad that he will call an ambulance, but he asks him to stop because he knows this is the end. He just wants to talk to his son one last time at the end. Tsuyoshi tells him that he could never tell him about his only lineage because that would mean telling him that there are people out to kill him. But now he can only ask Shiki to become strong enough to defeat both Mamoru and Oni so that he can live freely and happily. However, Shiki shouts at him to shut up because he is not done with him yet. He begins taking him outside saying that they will talk after he gets better, and Tsuyoshi just smiles at him once before breathing his last. As he falls to the ground, Shiki loses his mind. He tries to wake him up first and then starts crying uncontrollably. Soon after that, a man on roller skates arrives there, and when Shiki turns around to see him, he knocks him out with a single tap to his head before taking him away to a place where only like him can become stronger. While he is unconscious, Shiki dreams of the happy moments when he used to play in the park under his dad's watchful eyes. But then the dream turns dark abruptly, with Tsuyoshi dying at Samadare's hand. Shiki wakes up with a jolt as he stares into the bloodshot eyes of Samadare. But when he looks around, he finds himself gagged and tied to a chair in a large, empty hall. Right behind him, the skater guy who kidnapped him is doing one-arm handstand push-ups with his umbrella, and he gets back on his feet as soon as he sees Shiki awake. The edgelord introduces himself as Nato, a fellow Oni, and quickly manifests his horns. Shiki is too confused by everything, and he can't even pay attention to Nato, who refuses to tell him where they are right now. He informs him that his dad's body is stored safely in another place, and he brought him here for retrieval and evaluation. Nato then suddenly skates to the whiteboard in the corner and drags it closer to Shiki before flexing how fast and efficient it is to use roller skates instead of walking. Next, he begins explaining the Momotaro agency to Shiki, saying that he has already seen one guy who can control the black mist and use it like a weapon. The Momotaro agency finds and hunts on, and in response, the Oni created their own agency to fight back. Nato says that his job is to find newly awakened Oni like Shiki and bring them to a safe place where he can evaluate if they are worthy of joining the Oni agency. With that brief intro, he puts the whiteboard back in its place and then removes Shiki's gag so that he can interview him. As soon as he removes the gag, Shiki starts yelling at him to free him. He also curses Nato, threatening to kill him if he has harmed his dad's body, and Nato immediately deducts a point from his score that is already 0. He calls Shiki __ for not understanding what safely stored means because he mentioned it a couple minutes earlier. Shiki gets mad at him and says there is no way he can trust a shady edge lord like him, and Nato wasn't expecting anything else from him. He decides to deduct more points from Shiki's score the more he curses and demands to be set free, telling him to cooperate if he wants to pass the evaluation. Shiki doesn't give about the evaluation, but he wants to be free quickly, so he tries holding his anger. However, he can't even do that properly, and Nato tells him to stop, giving him the creepy look. Shiki snaps on hearing this, and Nato decides to evaluate him using a non-standard method because normal things don't seem to work. With nut jobs, he takes off his tie, and before Shiki can even realize what is going on, Nato uses the tie to strangle him with his full strength. Shiki panics as he loses his breath, and Nato says that a creature's true nature is revealed when it is close to death, and that is what he wants to see. Shiki tries to resist with his full strength, but he can't get out of the chokehold. Even after bleeding from every hole on his face, he soon loses consciousness, and Nato is disappointed in him. But the blood that Shiki just lost awakens as a result of its power. It turns into sharp spikes and attacks Nato, who dodges the attack without much difficulty. Suddenly, he finds a Gatling gun made of blood pointing at his head, and behind it Shiki is in his berserker state. He opens fire at Nato and then backs away after he is satisfied, but his attacks didn't even touch the edge lord who protected. Nato pulls out his bloody umbrella and prepares for Shiki's attack. If that attack had been aimed at a normal person, it would have been brutal. But since it's against Nato, who can control his powers, Nato uses it as an opportunity to teach Shiki a life lesson instead. Shiki later wakes up and sees his hands covered in blood. He realizes that his hand is no longer in its normal form, and he can't remember what happened. Nato explains that when an Oni goes berserk, it strips him of his mind and body, leaving no memory behind. Shiki notices that Nito also has some bloody weapon and assumes Nito went berserk too. But Nito clarifies that he's merely controlling his blood. He insists that Shiki can't even control his mind and body and would be useless to the team, even if they let him in. As a result, he has no interest in Shiki. Before he leaves, Shiki examines him. He knows Nito is strong, and being with him could give him a real chance at revenge. He swallows his pride and bows before Nito, asking him to take him along. However, Nato refuses, saying he won't take an Oni who would be a burden to the group. In fact, he doesn't want an Oni that can't control his powers roaming around and endangering others. So he'll kill Shiki. He stabs himself to bring out his blood to fight. Shiki doesn't want to die, so his only option is to fight back. He charges at Nito, and Nito, curious to see what Shiki can do, prepares to defend himself. He expects Shiki to leap in for an attack. But what Shiki does next blows his mind. He assumed that Shiki would go berserk as usual. But when Shiki jumps on his umbrella shield and reaches him, he sees that Shiki has created a gun with his Oni and shoots it at Nito. Fortunately, Nito is strong enough to defend against the gunshot and pushes Shiki back. When Shiki falls, he tries to prove to Nato that he had successfully controlled his power. But Nato insists that it was just a fluke and can't be counted. Just as Nato predicted, Shiki is almost entering berserk mode, but he tries to fight it. As the blood keeps trying to rush to his head, he holds his hands and fights back. Eventually, he successfully stops himself from going into berserk mode. Nito is shocked. He has never seen someone irrationally control the Oni blood. Shiki didn't only control his Oni blood, he also stopped himself from going berserk. And Nito wonders how that happened. When he asks Shiki, Shiki insists he won't give him his star secret unless Nato makes him his underling. When he sees that he needs to impress Nato, he tells Nadato that he saw the way Nato had pinched his finger to bring out the bloody umbrella. All he did was believe that since they were both Onus, he could do the same. As a result, he summoned his brain to make a gun for him, and his brain successfully made a gun. Nito doesn't believe him. Oni blood doesn't work like that. To Nito, on blood and rationality always conflict, which is why Onis who are irrational prove useless in the end. In Nito's head, there is a police officer between rationality and going berserk. To ensure you don't go berserk, you have to ask the officer to lock the berserk mode away and borrow about 30% of its power. However, that isn't the same thing going on in Shiki's head. His own is more violent. He is fighting the officer, and after defeating the officer, he fights the berserk mode to lend him power and ensure that he doesn't go berserk. He may be irrational, but there is something different about him which makes him the best fit for this crazy power. While Nito considers all this, Shiki keeps begging him. He pleads, saying he knows he isn't useful. But if Nito takes him in, and he becomes strong enough to avenge his father, he may eventually become useful to Nito after his revenge. Again, Nito refuses to take him in. He walks toward him with a bloody spear and tells him he has to kill him. He takes the spear and stabs Shiki. Well, not Shiki. He only stabs his side. He reveals that he won't take Shiki as his underling. Instead, he will take Shiki as his student. He confesses that right from the beginning, he already knew Shiki passed the test, but he won't reveal to Shiki what the question was. Trying to understand what the entire Oni is about, he reveals that Shiki is presently on the mountain and river that his principal was. That place is called the Hell Doorstep, known as Oniyashima. Inside that place is a school called the Rakshasa Academy. It isn't a normal school. It is a place where young and awakened Onus are trained on how to fight, how to control their blood, and ensure they don't go berserk. They also learn about the history between Onus and Momotaros. It is a school for Onus, and that is where Shiki will be attending to. Shiki is angry that he has to return to school, but if that means he will be able to have his perfect revenge, then he will go. He confirms with Nito that he can really get stronger. And when Nito affirms to him that getting stronger is the least of the things he will get there, he decides to join. To make it worse, Nato informs him that he will be his homeroom teacher. The students in the class are all young, but some of them have learned to control their powers more easily. He takes Shiki to get cleaned up, and before Shiki comes back outside, he notices that the horns on his head remain. Shiki comes out with his uniform. He is excited about this new journey, but before he starts, he needs to know what ended his father's life. He asks Nadato, who informs him that he had kept his father's body in the morgue because he doesn't know Shiki's burial plans. He advises Shiki that he doesn't have the time or opportunity to mourn, and instead of mourning, he should ensure that he gets stronger and has a perfect revenge. Nito starts racing to the classrooms and instructs Shiki to catch up and get to the class before him if he doesn't want to be expelled. Shiki runs and catches up. In front of the class, Shiki tries to catch his breath so he can enter with his pride. But Nito doesn't have time for that kind of packaging, so he kicks Shiki into the classroom. Shiki falls down and gets a nosebleed. He is worried that his classmates may see him as a coward. So he walks to one of the students, Jin Kugasaki, mocking Jin for not having his horns and asking for tissue. Jin reminds him that it's the Onis who can't control their powers that have horns showing. He brings out his horns. The other students, Ikari, Hina, Guji, and Hamar, who all have their horns showing and are also still weak, protest that Jin can't talk to them like that. On the first day of class, a fight almost starts. Nito pushes Shiki into a seat and instructs them all to settle down. Shiki is shocked at how he got pushed down, and Jin can't also imagine how Nito has gotten behind them. It's their introductory class, and Nito tells them they will play a tag game. He takes them to a forest that he calls the Shinra Forest. He commands them all to run their way back to the academy, and anyone he catches loses the game, gets expelled, and the game ends. To make it easier for them, he tells them he won't be using his blood, but they are all allowed to use their blood. However, if they go berserk, he will use his blood. When Shiki is shocked about the game, Nito reminds him that it isn't a normal school. It is a school where those who will fight against the Momotaro agency are trained, so they have to be on their game. Jin asks what happens if they kill Nito since Nito isn't using his blood. And Nito tells him that if he is killed, then the person that killed him will graduate immediately and be given any position he wants. Shiki thinks about graduating. It means he is strong enough to fight his father's killers. But can he kill his teacher yet? The answer is no. Nito sees that the others are ready for the game except for Shiki, who is lost in thought. He summons Shiki, who smiles in anticipation of what his journey will be. This is the first test for Shiki and the other students admitted to Retsu Academy. And the official name of the test is Oni Tag. To explain the rules of Oni Tag, once again, the participants must return to the academy within 1 hour without getting caught by the player who is acting as it in this case. Their homeroom teacher, Naidito, mentions one more rule to the students. They are required to have one of these two special orbs in order to reach the goal. Just after saying so, Nito proceeds to yeet the two balls away once again, telling the students that even if they manage to return to the academy, it won't count unless they have one of the balls with them. Guji asks Nadato how they are all supposed to pass if only 2 balls are available per round. And before Nito can answer, Ikari realizes that the students are going to have to fight against each other to get the balls. Nito reveals that that is the case and explains to everyone that they will all be split into 3 groups. He picks Omar, Shiki, and Jin to be in the first group, then places Ai in the second group. And lastly, the remaining 2, Rokuro and Quima, are in group 3. Because groups 2 and 3 only have 2 members each, they will only have access to 1 ball. Meaning that while group 1 will fight for 2 balls and possibly have 2 people pass, group 2 will only have 1 winner. And the same goes for group 3 as well. So technically, at least 3 of the rookie students are going to be expelled from this academy. With nothing left to explain, Nito tells everyone to get ready when Shiki interrupts, shouting that he doesn't want to be in the same group as Jin, referring to Jin as a masked weirdo. Nito makes it clear that if any one of the students has any objections to the rules set by the teacher, then they are welcome to leave this academy. The same goes for Shiki, and since he doesn't want to get expelled, he doesn't have any other option but to comply with the rules. Omari, who's quite shy, reluctantly approaches Shiki and tells him that she isn't quite good at being an Oni. So, she will do her best not to get in Shiki's way during the tag game. Shiki, meanwhile, can't believe that a real girl, approached a loser like him. All his life, girls have stayed away from him because he's been a total delinquent. And as this is the first time in his life he's speaking to a real woman, he immediately falls in love, promising her that he will protect her no matter what. Omar reluctantly explains that this is not what she wants from him. She just wanted to get acquainted with him. She then goes to speak with the other teammate, Jin, but he completely ignores her existence, leaving her in tears. Shiki, as promised, comes to protect Pride and curses Jin for making her cry. He then tries to calm Hamar down, telling her that someone as cute as her shouldn't ruin her face by crying, then corrects himself, saying that crying does make her look cuter. He then corrects himself once again, telling her that she will look cuter if she smiles and encourages her, Now that has calmed down, Shiki once again turns to Jin, picking a fight. In any case, Jin tells Shiki to give up now, believing that Shiki is going to get expelled, but Shiki states that he has a goal and will graduate the academy to achieve it. Jin mockingly says that Shiki's goal must be as meaningless as his existence, and that sends Shiki boiling with rage. But before he can engage in any more meaningless fights and waste everyone's time, Nito stops him, telling him and the rest of Group 1 to enter the game area. While both Shiki and Jin step inside quickly in order to find the orb, Omar is left behind as she's too hesitant to do anything. While dashing through the forest, Jin gives us a hint about his goal, which is to join a unit so that he can meet a certain someone. And to achieve that goal, he will do anything, even kill Nito, as that will immediately graduate him from the academy. Shiki, meanwhile, pursues Jin, wanting to teach him a lesson for calling his goal meaningless. With a wooden stick in his hand as a weapon, Shiki threatens Jin, telling him to either take his words back or fight him. Jin has had enough of this loser, so he takes off his mask for a second, revealing his hideous scarred face, and gets ready to fight. Shiki doesn't get intimidated at all and tells Jin to bring it on. So Jin draws his only blood, turning it into several drills attached to his right arm with pure precision. Shiki, who on the other hand can barely control his Oni blood, starts to realize that he shouldn't have picked this fight. Shiki admits to Jin that he isn't good at being an Oni yet, but still makes it clear that he won't back down, telling him that he must defend his dad's death, which Jin called meaningless. Jin, of course, didn't know that, and now that he's learned that Shiki's goal is to avenge his dad, he, for some reason, gets more pumped to beat the out of him. Shiki bites his fingers, but unlike the time he fought Nato, isn't able to transform his blood into a weapon, so he's got no option but to fight with the wooden stick. And as expected, Jin overpowers him, barely missing him and cutting down an entire tree. On the other side, Amar trips and falls to the ground and falls into despair, accepting the fact that a confidenceless weakling like her doesn't belong here. She remembers that Shiki told her that he wants to work with her, but she is self-aware enough to know that she mustn't rely on others all the time. In any case, she keeps heading toward the bang she heard coming from Shiki and Jin's fight, not noticing that one of the balls was right behind her. Going back to Shiki, while he's desperately trying to land a hit on Jin, Jin is tossing him around, not taking the fight seriously at all. Shiki loses focus, wondering how he's going to control his only blood, and gets punished for not paying attention to the fight, getting punched hard across the face. Just as he opens his eyes after Jin has finished with him, he realizes that he has never felt that weak before. As a young child, he had always been very stubborn and stronger than anyone who intended to fight against him. He assumes it will be the same in this place, but the people around him are quite stronger than he is. Jin doesn't even turn to look back at him lying on the floor. He mocks him, saying he didn't even need to use his blood before finishing the fight. So Shiki is very useless. As he walks away, Shiki speaks to him. Shiki is angry that he could just do that to him and leave. Shiki tells him that he will get revenge, but Jin has heard enough of Shiki's stupid attitude. He tells him that it's best he dies since he is weak. He sends a bloody attack at Shiki, and at about the same time, Omar, who has been looking for them since she entered the forest, finds them. The young girl innocently runs to meet them, unaware that she's running straight into an ongoing attack. Before she reaches them, the weapon Jin sent has gotten closer, and her face lights up as she sees the attack. The scene gets toxic as there are fears that this attack may be the end of them. But since Shiki has promised her that he will protect her, he goes out of his way to ensure that she is fine. He holds her, and after the entire attack runs by, he releases her, but he is injured and a part of his blood drips on her body. He goes to confront Jin, asking why Jin would do something like that and put them all in danger. Jin doesn't feel bad about what he has done. He insists that it isn't his fault, that they are weak, they deserve to die. Omar sees the injury on Shiki's body and feels very bad. She bows her head and apologizes for getting him injured, but he insists that she isn't the one who got him injured. Instead, it is Jin. She keeps bowing and begging him, and her tears become bloody. From her bloody tears, a monster comes out, and it looks horrible, and Oni has a lot of blood, and their blood can generate several things. Homar knows how crazy that monster can be and knows she can't control it. She begs them to run because the monster will kill them. The monster attacks them, and it really looks like the end of them. Meanwhile, Nito looks at the scene and the principal speaks to him. The principal reminds him that the day is meant to be an orientation day, but he is putting the kids in a war zone. He tells the principal that what he is teaching them is more than giving them orientation in class. It is more productive. The principal has always assumed that Nato isn't kind, but he knows that Nato has a part of him that is kind. He talks about how Honest die as children. Some kids even die just by being related to Honest. Some are taken to the laboratory for testing. At that point, when they are about to die, he wonders what they are thinking. That doesn't concern Nito. He believes that an Oni who is weak deserves to die. Meanwhile, Shiki survives the monster and wonders if Jin survived, too. Jin jumps out of the grove and leaps in to keep fighting. Shiki goes to meet and asks her if she could control that monster, but Hamar can't. The monster uses her blood, and she is losing a lot of it. So he needs to take her away from under the monster. As he gets nearer to her, he sees that the monster tries to protect. He wonders what could have caused that, but he doesn't stop. He tries getting to her, but the monster breathes blood and throws him off. He hears call the monster sis, and he realizes it could be a trauma. Tells him that he should run away, but he can't do that. He reminds her that she is losing blood and may run out soon. She doesn't care about herself or her health, and she is fine with dying, but he is concerned. She has to face the fact that she's barely hanging in there, and he just wants to help. Knowing that he is that weak isn't even hard. It is quite pathetic. He recalls how he had watched his father die, and he was too weak to do anything, and even now is too weak. He starts crying because his blood can't release anything. Jin comes out and tells him to leave if he wants to cry. Jin rushes to fight and admits that the hit he got from that monster is still affecting him. But if he runs away at that point, he will die. So he can't. He injures himself to release his blood and calls the Eclipse blood release. Jin releases 2 different weapons, and this shocks Nato, who is watching them from afar. It takes a lot of blood control for an Oni, especially one as young as that, to successfully release 2 weapons. To release a weapon through blood for an Oni takes severe brain work. Your brain releases something through your blood, and it creates something you are familiar with. For some, it is a weapon that they love. For others, it is trauma they have kept all these years. Regardless, it takes intentionality. He knows that Shiki won't be able to release anything because what he had gotten when they fought earlier was just a fluke. Jin jumps to fight the monster and attempts to cut off its head, but he is shocked when the monster protects itself. He jumps away, and the monster tries to fight back. He keeps cutting through the blood with his sword, and Shiki takes his time to watch this fight while considering why he is too weak to even bring out a weapon. He suddenly realizes that everything Jin is using is to cut, meaning he can only create weapons that cut. He recalls that he had created a gun earlier and remembers that as a young child, he loved guns, so he tries to navigate what weapon he can get. On the other hand, the fight between the monster and Jin gets severe, and Nito knows he can't keep watching, so he gets set to help them. Before he does that, the monster screams, and Shiki tells him to keep quiet. Their attention is directed to Shiki, who has successfully directed his blood to create a gun. Nito is relieved that Shiki has gotten a hang of his blood. Shiki shoots the gun at the monster and blows off its head, while Jin looks at him in shock, and Shiki himself is proud. He has successfully gotten a hang of his weapon. What does this mean? Shiki sets out to fight with his weapon, while Jin watches to know how he will use that weapon. The monster in front of him also doesn't expect what would land on him in a few minutes. Shiki activates his gun with pride and shoots at the monster 3 times. The kind of energy that flies from that gun isn't a natural one. Even for an Oni, it is so strong that it could successfully defeat the monster. The monster scatters around, and the head flies. Naidito wonders what kind of energy that is. It is one that even he didn't expect. To make it worse, he feels blood falling from the sky, and then rain. This just means Shiki's bullet didn't just destroy the monster, it also changed the weather. What a power! Hamar is tired. She has lost a lot of blood, so she feels dizzy and falls. Shiki feels so much pity for her that he struggles to go to her rescue. However, he isn't that strong himself. He falls down but still tries to drag, but it is impossible. Nato comes to meet him and tells him that he has used a lot of blood. As a result, he feels dizzy and his memory is foggy. Shiki knows Nato is right, but he doesn't want to accept defeat. Instead, he struggles to stand up and brags to Nito that he could stand up despite all. However, he falls down immediately, this time harder. Nito doesn't feel pity for him. Instead, he tells him that he lacks control of his power, and if he continues like that, he will lose all his blood and die. Well, his death wouldn't be a pain because he is useless himself. Although, Nito can also shake the fact that Shiki is strong out of his mind. Shiki tells Nito to help because she needs help more. Nito looks at him wondering how he could still care for others even when he is in that condition. Before he could go to Homar's rescue, Jin comes there and attacks him from behind. He defends himself, and Jin asks to fight. He reminds Jin that two of his colleagues are lying there helplessly, but Jin doesn't care. He says they don't matter after all, and it isn't his business. He reminds Nito that if he kills Nito, he graduates immediately. So Nito is his target. Seeing how selfish he is, Nito activates his umbrella and gets set to fight. He comments that he treats his students equally, no matter how weak or strong they are. And he also hates people who discriminate. Jin isn't trying to be liked. He just wants to kill Nito, graduate from the school, and get posted to a post he wants. Nito knows his driving force, but insists that he wouldn't use his blood, just as he had promised. But he won't be calm with Jin either. Jin gets pissed that Nito doesn't see him as a great opponent, which is why Nito isn't bothered. He sets out to fight by releasing his blood in a blade. But what he doesn't know is that Nito's umbrella isn't a natural one. Before Jin could get closer to Nito releases gas from his umbrella. The snow blurs Jin's face. He assumes that Nito intends to attack him at close range, and that if he gets his sight back, he could defend himself. What he doesn't know is that Nito has figured him out. Nito attacks by shooting rubber bullets at him. He tries to hide and successfully hides behind a tree. Nito reveals that he knows Jin is injured because of the Titan he has fought, so he is going for his injured hands. But Jin doesn't have to worry. Those bullets won't kill him. Jin also has something for people who know about his low-range attacks. He releases another weapon, the blood splitters, which can fight someone from afar. He sends the splitters at Nito, who didn't fathom that Jin could fight long range, too. Since he is skilled, Nito dodges the attack before releasing a grenade to weaken Jin. Then he jumps at Jin and gives him a punch that throws him off balance. He mocks Jin that if Jin was fighting a real fight, he would be dead already. He knows that Jin is too weak to stand again, but to confirm it, he uses his umbrella to get him more stuck, asking him to break out. He says he knows Jin wants to be posted as fast as possible so he can meet his dad. Jin is shocked that Nidito knows his history, but isn't it just fair that a teacher knows his students? Nato reveals that he knows Jin's father is a Momotaro, which is a shock to Shiki. The difference between Shiki and Jin's fathers, despite being Motros, is that Shiki's father loved him as a child and took care of him. However, Jin's father was the direct opposite. He didn't treat him well, killed his entire family, and destroyed him. Jin survived barely, eating garbage around. His body is filled with scars that were caused by his own father. These scars are a testament to his dedication to just one thing in life, which is to kill his father. Because of this dedication, nothing else can kill him. In fact, he won't accept dying by anything else. He struggles to break out of the umbrella that Nito has kept him in, and he breaks out. However, before he could attack Nito attacks him and brings him back down. Before leaving him, Nato tells him that dying to get your goal is worthless. If there is anything that can make it worth it, it is living for your goal. If Jin continues like that with the intention of dying to reach his goal, he won't live until the next day. Nito doesn't pity Jin because of his soba stories. Instead, he ties Jin to a tree and calls the school's clinic. He tells them that Homar has fainted while he had tied Jin, so they should pick them up. The other students are outside the gate trying to know how that day would end. Meanwhile, Nito looks at Shiki and Shiki struggles to stand up, claiming that he is still strong enough to continue, and he can find the ball, which is their target. Nito reminds him that he has about 5 minutes to get the ball. To make matters worse, he reveals that he has one of the balls in his hand as he found it on his way coming there. He gives Shiki 2 options: either fight him and get the ball from him, or check around for the last ball. No matter what he chooses, he has 5 minutes to determine his stay at the school. Shiki immediately starts running, and Nito assumes that Shiki wants to find the other ball, so he speeds off and follows him. After Nito leaves, Shiki jumps out of the forest and goes to meet Jin. He asks Jin to help him because he knows that no matter how he tries, he can't defeat Nito alone. In return, he will untie Jin, thereby helping him, too. Jin would rather die than get help from someone like Shiki, so he refuses the offer. He claims he prefers remaining there than being indebted. However, Shiki tries to tell him he understands him. However, to him, teaming up with an enemy isn't that hard if it is what he needs to get his goals. He reveals that their goals are similar and tells Jin that his father is also a Momotaro. However, he is fine with Jin refusing to help him. Nito rushes to the forest but can't find Shiki there. He assumes that Shiki has returned back. On the other hand, Shiki is running into the forest and cussing Jin out. He bumps into Nito in the forest, and before they could fight, Jin jumps from behind Nito and attacks him. Nato realizes that the boys have teamed up against him. Earlier, Jin had refused to be the disguise so that Shiki could attack Nito from behind. Rather, he accepts to be the attacking from behind, and Shiki reluctantly goes for what he wants. They both catch Nito unaware, and they use the rope that Nito had used to tie Jin to tie Nito. They start trying to drag Nato away, but Nito knows they are trying to play a game of endurance, and he is stronger than them, so they aren't a good fit. He doesn't know that they plan to ambush him. Jin throws his splatters of blood at Nato, and that catches him off guard. After he gets pulled off, Shiki rushes to him to get the ball. By the time Shiki hits him, the ball falls right to where Jin is. Nito wonders what they will both do. If any of them pick the ball, the other will struggle to get the ball away from him. They both have less than 3 minutes to rush to the end goal. Without thinking deeply, Shiki screams to Jin and tells Jin to go for the ball so they can win. Just as Jin picks the ball and starts running, Nato wonders if what he had just said was stupidity or being nice. He reminds Shiki that the person who takes the ball wins and the other person gets expelled. According to the rule of the game, it is at this moment that it clicks to Shiki that he had given Jin the opportunity to win and he will be losing. He screams and rolls on the floor because he will lose. This gives Nato an opportunity to know him better. He isn't someone that is forward-thinking. He thinks for the moment and makes decisions for the moment. As Jin runs, he recalls the agreement he made with Shiki before they teamed up. He had told Shiki that he would help Shiki win, meaning if he takes that ball, he had stolen Shiki's win. As a result, he runs back to return the ball to Shiki. Just as Shiki laments, he sees Jin running back, and he wonders if Jin is also a fool. Jin screams that he doesn't want to owe someone a favor, so he is returning the ball, even if it means he will be expelled. Suddenly, a puppy gets nearer to them. Shiki goes closer to see what it is, and Nito tells him it is called a mukun. Mukun are delivery birds that run emergency and secret deliveries for the onus. And for mukun to be there, it means something is happening. Nito goes to open the bag and sees a letter from the Kyoto agency who announces that they have been attacked by Momotaro and they need help. The practical officially ends and they all make their way to the gate. Lucky for the two boys though, the other students at the gate see them and assume that Omar was the one who lost the game. However, Nito informs them that couldn't control her blood and she has been taken to the clinic. He announces to them that the practical has ended and they are all going to Kyoto to aid. Shiki trains on how he would stop his horns from coming outside, and the other students wonder if they are taking an open ship to a city that is under attack. They are scared they will be killed, but Nato informs them that they aren't fighting and they are only giving support. He explains that in every city there is an Oni agency. The agency has two teams. The first team are the ones who fight the war, while the other team gives support. Considering the fact that Onis lose blood easily and they can't go to the hospital, the team that gives support helps take care of victims to ensure they are fine. Overall, each team is important to the success of the agency. Hearing that they are only there for support discourages Shiki. He considers what he will do if the Momotaro that killed his father is also there. Nito sees through his thoughts and informs him that the Momotaro he is looking for won't be there. This is because Momotaros also have agencies. They wonder which kind of Momotaro will be there, and Nato shockingly tells them it's a crazy one. Soon after, Nito brings his rookie students before a local restaurant in Kyoto. But it's actually just a front, and in reality, is one of the secret bases of the Oni agency. The old lady owner of the restaurant comes out, welcoming everyone to the place, and then bringing them over to a room inside that leads to a secret stairway to an underground tunnel. Meanwhile, two executives of the Momotaro agency are somewhere else and reveal that they have already decapitated a group of Oni. One of the executives is Tubakiri Momiya, the captain of the Momotaro agency, and his associate is Yomogi Mamakusa, the vice captain. Yomogi thinks that Tubakiri went overboard like always, and has made this entire area a total mess. Tubakiri couldn't care less about cleanup duty. He wants to exterminate more pests and expresses his wish to encounter a female Oni for once, so that he can use her for research purposes. Yomogi mentions how gross Subabakiri's experiments can be and reveals one of Subabakiri's abhorrent creations, a creature that is a blend of a dog, a monkey, and a bird. Subabakiri calls Yomogi mean, stating that his creations, which he refers to as anti-Oni biological weapons, are great pets. as they are loyal and only eat on. Yomogi continues to argue, telling Tabasi that he should put more effort into his jobs instead of focusing solely on experimenting on Oni. Subakiri states that the only reason he's been studying Oni blood, Yomogi still doesn't stop because she's a woman. And as they keep arguing, the camera pans slowly to the left, showing us viewers that there's a kid Oni hiding around the corner and scared out of his wits after hearing what Tubakiri said. Unfortunately for him, both Tubakiri and Yomogi are aware of him hiding there. And once they are done chattering, Yomogi beats him up, referring to the kid as it, which is super disrespectful. While Yomogi is hitting the poor child, a drop of blood splashes on Subabakiri's coat, which makes him so mad that he decides to torture the kid himself. Using his Momotaro powers, Subabakiri lifts all of the Oni corpses in the air and asks the kid to point to which severed limb belongs to his mommy and daddy. The kid is unable to speak and terrified of the monster in front of him, which is quite ironic because the kid is supposed to be the monster here. Because the kid is not answering, Tuba piles up all of the corpses and squishes the kid inside the pile, an inhumane sight. Yomogi explains to us briefly about Sububaker's abilities. You see, Momorose's abilities let them fight using the special black bacteria in their bodies, where some make weapons and others launch spores. But in Subabakiri's case, he controls the movement of Oni corpses using the black bacteria, a technique that gives Yomogi chills. Anyway, with the job done, now it's time to clean this mess up. So, Subakiri tells his pet Ugly to go ahead and eat the Oni dumpling. On the other side, Shiki and the other students along with teacher Nito are walking through the underground tunnel that leads them to the main base of the Oni agency in Kyoto. Upon entering, Shiki can't help but wonder how huge this underground base is. They hear a commotion in the room ahead, and from inside, a man named Kyoka comes out who seems to be buddies with Nito, although it looks kind of like a one-sided friendship. After greeting Nito, Kyoka notices that there is a hot female student who came along with Nadito as well, so he starts fixing his hair before asking the girl for her contact information. This flirty guy is the commander of the ONI agency's Kyotoba-based support unit, and he proudly introduces himself to Nito's students as Nito's old classmate. Nito doesn't want to waste any more of his precious time with this guy, so he decides to go to the front lines immediately. Shiki wants to go with him, but Nito leaves alone, giving Kyoka the responsibility to handle all of the students from Rakshasa Academy. Kyoka brings them inside, and a nurse helps them change their clothes first. She then brings them over to the hall room where many injured Oni have been receiving treatment from her and Kyoka, who is the main doctor. Shiki sees that one of the patients has suffered extensive damage with 3 limbs missing from his body, and the nurse states that if this patient were on the battlefield, he would be dead in less than 3 minutes. However, Kyoka is confident that he will be able to aid this patient and brings tons of Oni blood to begin operating on him. The Momotaro AY's captain and vice captain are still on an Oni hunt, and this time they are facing a gang of low-level Oni grunts, which disappoints Tabaki a little as he was expecting something better. Fortunately for him, Nito arrives and doesn't bother engaging in any small talk. Going straight to the point, Nito activates his blood eclipse release, turning his blood into several flying archers that fire arrows at Subabakiri. Tubakiri, in response, uses Oni corpses to defend himself before revealing that he and Nato are old acquaintances. He is twisted as ever comments on how Oni corpses make great shields. He then asks Nato if he knows that there is a place where all Oni of Kyoto have been gathering recently. He plans to head to that place and wipe of the Oni out, believing that this way the Oni problem in Kyoto will end completely. Nito claims to have no idea about such a place, but promises Tsubakiri that he will be sending him to a place where it's believed that Oni gather, and it's hell. Kyoka on the other side injects all of the blood bags into his arm, which confuses Shiki as he thought that those blood bags would be used to treat the patients. His impatience annoys the nurse, so she tells him to stay quiet for the rest of the session. Kyoka asks the suffering patient which limb he would like to regenerate, and the patient, struggling to move his mouth, still desperately tells him to fix his arm as he would like to hold his kids once again. Kyoka accordingly makes the patient drink his blood, which has the power to boost on healing by several times over. The process hurts like hell, so the students hold the patient down to stop him from moving. Shiki notices that all of the blood bags have been drained already, so the nurse asks the others to get some more blood. After a while, the cells of the patient's arm begin to regenerate, and it's truly a disgusting yet miraculous sight. With the arm back, the patient's wounded chest heals next, and Shiki is impressed. He excitedly asks Kyoka if the patient's legs will heal, too. And Kyoka replies that they will, but they have to take it slow, otherwise the patient's body will develop antibodies to destroy Kyoka's blood. In any case, Kyoka gives the patient the bad news that he can no longer be in the combat unit, so he will have to serve in the support unit from now on. Kyoka jokes that he will give the patient a pair of prosthetic legs so he can walk and perhaps run around with his kids again until his legs heal up. And the patient, knowing that Kyoka is saying all of this to cheer him up, cries, thanking the doctor for saving his life. Kyoka gets up and turns to the students, telling them to face reality. Situations like this happen every time there's a war, and there will come times when one of them might have to become a patient as well. Kyoka understands why people want to fight on the front lines. He wants to do it too, but because his Oni blood is only good at healing, he must utilize his powers by being in the support unit. Anyway, Kyoka tells the students to always remember that the Oni can only fight fearlessly in the front lines because they have the support unit backing them up. All of the students become motivated to do their best, and Shiki specifically gets all emotional, promising to never let Kyoka down. Speaking of which, Kyoka wants Shiki to deal with something and gives him the task of looking after an Oni girl called Mei, who's sitting alone in the garden room of this base. Kyoka explains that Mei was attacked by the Momotaro the previous day and was brought here for treatment. Since it's possible that Mei's parents aren't alive, Kyoka wants Shiki to give the poor girl some emotional support, as he knows that Shiki is one of the few kind ones among the students. Shiki understands and approaches the girl, asking her if she finds it amazing that there's a pond in the middle of this underground base. The girl doesn't respond, but Shiki continues asking if Mei's parents are Ghibli fans since they named her after a famous Ghibli character. Mei still doesn't respond, so Shiki asks her if she would like to go to Irudadera with him. This time, she talks, asking Shiki what Ayudara is, explaining that she doesn't have a lot of basic knowledge as she didn't go to school. Shiki wonders why, but before he can continue talking to her, he hears a commotion and finds out that the support unit has found many Oni corpses lying around in Kyoto and has brought them here. When Mei comes there, she is mortified upon discovering that both her parents are dead and that their corpses have been brought here as well. Meanwhile, Tobakiri mentions to Nato that he's left a gift for the Oni at his previous fight scene, revealing that he deliberately left some Oni corpses there instead of feeding them to his pet, and has laced them with his black bacteria. Suspecting that the Oni agency support unit would bring the corpses to their base unsuspectingly, Subabakiri can't hold back his excitement anymore, as he cannot wait to control those corpses from here and create a ruckus at the Oni base just to check if the corpses have reached the base. He controls one of them, and it's Mei's dad. She becomes overwhelmed with joy, thinking her dad has come back alive, only to be horrified when he starts choking the life out of her. Kyoka, realizing that Subabakiri is behind this, tells Shiki to quickly close Mei's eyes and then stabs the possessed corpse in the brain to deactivate Subabakiri's ability. Shiki doesn't know who Tobakiri is, but he vows to make him pay for traumatizing this innocent girl. Under Subabakiri's influence, the Oni corpses begin attacking the workers of the support unit and don't even spare the already wounded Oni, who escaped from battle. Kyoka struggles to take the lead in this chaos, as he himself is attacked by a dozen Oni corpses. Shiki, on the other hand, is getting choked by poor Mei's mom, and Mei can't do anything except beg with teary eyes, telling her mom to stop. The poor girl already saw her dad die seconds ago, so Shiki clearly can't just go ahead and stab her mom next right in front of her eyes again. Since Shiki still doesn't have a clear grasp of his Oni abilities, Nito had given him a handgun back when they were on the ship on their way to this city. The gun's bullets have Shiki's blood infused in them, making them more dangerous than regular bullets. And Shiki wonders if he should use the gun to free himself from Mei's mom's hold. With his own life on the line, he chooses the difficult option, grabs Mei close to him to prevent her from seeing what's about to happen, and then shoots her zombie mom in the head. Shiki then shoots the Oni that surrounded Kyoka and frees him from their hold. As Kyoka isn't fit for combat, he puts Shiki in charge of handling this mess, while he himself rushes away to bring the patients to safety. Meanwhile, the other students are also fighting the zombie Oni. But since they themselves aren't that great at controlling their blood, they have no other option but to use their regular human fists. After a few minutes of fighting, they manage to knock down several zombie Oni, but they just keep getting back up. Shiki comes there and informs everyone that these Oni corpses are under a Momotaro's control and can only be freed if their brains are destroyed. Jin steps up using his blood eclipse technique to cut down the Oni approaching him. Shiki, on the other hand, is playing Call of Duty. It pains him to do this as he knows that these people have friends and families that care for them. But still, for the greater good, he continues shooting them. Meanwhile, Kyoka is busy bringing everything in order, and he commands all of his subordinates to get the patients somewhere safe. Shiki is almost about to cry. His enemy is the Momotaro, so why is it that he has to kill his own kind against his own will? This question screws with his mind, and Subabakiri, who's on the other side imagining the exact thing happening at the Oni agency's base, can't help but laugh at the spectacle. Nito knows that he must do something quickly before the situation escalates further, so he draws his weapon, the umbrella sword. But as he charges at Subabakiri, the arrogant guy doesn't even move and just uses the Oni corpses as body shields, making a twisted comment that Nito has just made an Oni shish kebab. Nito doesn't even realize that Subabakiri's monster pet Ugly has sneaked up on him. But just as the beast is about to punch him, he dodges, and the Oni shish kebab takes the hit. Nito is visibly saddened seeing his comrades being toyed with and disrespected like this even after death. And Subakiri, noticing that, tells Nato mockingly that he should be happy these maggots are getting exterminated. Nato's patience has run out, so he decides to go all out, telling the rest of the Oni behind him to escape as they will just get in his way. However, Kubikari isn't going to allow any of them to leave, so he makes Yumogi use her abilities involving her melons them to create a barrier around Nito and the other Oni. Nito demands an explanation as to what this black sphere is that has contained them, and Sububakiri, confident that Nito won't be able to escape, explains that this is Yumogi's special ability, and unless she says so, they won't be able to leave. And that means Tubakiri can just freely head to the Oni agency's hideout and kill the rest of them there before dealing with Nato here. That is if he remains alive. Nato remains silent, hoping Subakiri doesn't know the location of the hideout. But Subabakiri reveals that he had planted transmitters on every corpse he left behind. And all of those transmitters are now pointing to one location, right under the Iruta Dera building in Kyoto. Tubakiri has nothing more to do here, so he walks away while laughing maniacally, leaving his pet Ugly behind to deal with Nito. Yumogi grants Ugly permission to enter the black sphere, and it gladly goes inside to grab its lunch. She then tags along with Tsubakiri, and he, like always, elaborates on what he is about to do. He decides to use it as a bomb to kill all of the Oni inside along with it. With just a snap of his fingers, the beast belly begins to blow up, and before Nito can even figure out what he should do, the beast explodes, destroying everyone in the sphere. Tsubakiri looks back and becomes a little disappointed as he had hoped the explosion would look more interesting. Regardless, he walks away confident that the explosion has gotten rid of all of the maggots, including the maggots' leader, Nato. On the other hand, Shiki and his teammates try their best to kill all the regenerating Onis. By the time they shoot the last one, they are all exhausted from the energy it has taken from them. They look at themselves and sigh in relief that it is all over. Kyoka informs them that he has taken all the injured Oni to safety and appreciates them for all they have done, admitting that if they weren't there, things would have gotten worse. They look at Mei, who is staring at her parents' corpses, feeling pity for the young girl. They all walk to meet her. Kyoka tries sympathizing with her while Shiki feels worse because he was the one who shot her parents. He apologizes to her for making her witness such a miserable scene as he recalls how it felt when he shot them. She looks at them reassured and tells them they don't have to feel bad. She admits that all her life she had lived in fear, hiding from place to place, and couldn't even attend school. She knew that day would come, but she just didn't know when, so they don't have to feel bad. She reassures them, claiming they shouldn't worry about her. Those words make Shiki more worried. This young girl had just lost her parents, and instead of being in tears, she is reassuring them. He realizes how much the world has become a den of terrorists. He can't imagine a girl being this mature at a young age. When he was her age, all he did was watch superheroes and dream of becoming one. He recalls how his father looked at him as a child and how he would demonstrate the superhero sign. He assumes Momotaro are meant to be superheroes who safeguard the world and give others a safe place to live. But he couldn't imagine they are actually the villains. If those meant to make the world better are the ones destroying it, then he will do them a favor by becoming a villain himself. He vows to Mei as he hugs her and tells her he would ensure he creates a world where she will be safe to smile again. Can he bring this vow into reality? He holds her to his chest while the other Onis watch in sadness, thinking about their reality and how their lives are nothing but exploitation in the eyes of the Momotaro.